Hello, viewers. I'm VibhutiJha. As always, this is Jaipur Dialogue USA. Welcome to the show. Before I start, I want to request you please like, subscribe, and support our channel. Give your feedback. We value your support and your feedback. Today, we wanted to talk about a very remarkable situation that is emerging in New York City. New York City, as if you remember, when I came in 91, was a hellhole. I've seen it myself. And when Mr. Giuliani became the mayor of New York City, he turned the city around. And New York City did indeed become the world's greatest city. From Times Square to every other place, it was a tourist delight. It was wonderful to visit Times Square and every other place in New York City, which was safe, secure, and a pleasure to be in. So those of you who have memory of both, I have seen both, the ugly New York City and the New York City that got transformed. And in today's times, New York City is slipping back. A very interesting pointer here. Mr. Giuliani was a Republican who turned the city around for 2 terms. He was followed by a former Republican, Mr. Bloomberg of the famous Bloomberg Enterprise. He later on became independent and Democrat because of his personal differences or dislike for Mr. Trump. Be that as it may, the essential credit for turning New York City around rests on the Republican leadership. Mr. Blasio became the mayor, and we began to see the decline in the city. Safety, security, control. Many friends of mine in New York City began to tell me, when we go around, we have to constantly look over our shoulder. And now comes the next election now, which is pitted 3 prominent Democrats, Andrew Cuomo, who was a former governor, Mr. Ed, naam slip ho gaya, my apologies, current mayor. And the current mayor, who is in the seat, but there is a tough fight. Zohran Mamdani is leading in all polls. He is young, very charming, and very persuasive. One of the hallmarks of his campaign is the promise to give things free to everything that is going on. My point here is very simple. Will Mr. Mamdani be a lose-lose situation for New York City and Democrats, or will he be a different kind of a leadership? To talk about this, I have great pleasure in welcoming 2 gentlemen who are great friends of mine, Mr. Mohan Wanchoo, a technology entrepreneur running a very successful business, and Dr. Rakesh Sharma, who is a physician. And to his credit, I want to acknowledge that in another show, once upon a time, the day COVID was declared a pandemic by United Nations, Mr. Sharma had called it out on my show that this was a man-made crisis. This is the guts and courage of this man. So I want to acknowledge that, Rakeshji. So Mohanji, I want to start with you a very important question that is in my mind, which happened primarily because of the Newsday report that was published just a day ago, in which many Indian Americans have voiced serious concern about Mamdani's candidature. And one of the things that happened was that he said that I have grown up between my mother, who is a Hindu, and my father, who is a Muslim, and I have learned Hindu values. My question is, do you think one can verify that? Whether he has been worshipping, doing Murti Puja at home? Does he celebrate Hindu festivities at home? Or as per the Islamic diktat, which is a part of the process, you have to become a Muslim to be a Muslim wife, and nothing else is allowed in the house. That's a disclosure that is required to be done by him. Mohanji, how do you view his candidature? Important part, I must add here, that you are a Kashmiri Hindu, and you have seen the impact of the belief systems that made you and your colleagues and friends and family a refugee from Kashmir. That point, something that New Yorkers do not know.
Thank you very much, VibhutiJi, for inviting me on your show. It's really a great pleasure to be here. Regarding your comment about Zohran Mamdani's uh, comments, that you mentioned, about his background, about his upbringing and his family heritage. um, I I am reminded about his comments that he made about globalizing the intifada. Sitting here in New York City, Mr. Mamdani is more worried about the Middle East and how there's a Palestinian uprising against the Jewish state and all the crime and the violence that's happening in that part of the world. Um, he has made comments about globalizing the intifada. So the impression that one gets is that Zohran Mamdani is more concerned about his Islamic background, rather than the Hindu background. That the Hindu background that he mentions may be more for getting the votes of the Hindus. I'm not sure whether he has made any other comments supporting the Hindus. In fact, he's made other comments in that direction. So my understanding and my take on this is that if he should become the mayor of New York City, that there'll be a heavy Islamic influence in his dealings, in New York City.
Thank you. Thank you. Rakeshji, I want to come back to the subject matter in which it is reported and it is recorded that he called Hindus a bastard. And that's why this is the first ever time that a major mainstream newspaper called New York Post did a story on the plight and the anxiety and the concerns of Indian Americans about his candidature. So, how would you take that forward?
Yeah, thanks for the invitation, Mr. Jha. And I'm happy to be in the company of Mr. Mohan Wanchoo. This is a hot topic right now about Mamdani running for mayor of New York City, which is very prestigious and powerful position. We all know that Zohran Mamdani was uh, born in Uganda. Both his parents were born in India, so he has very strong Indian heritage. We all being born in India and American just like him should be very friendly to Zohran Mamdani, and we should be even more friendlier because both his parents were born in India. Why are we taking a stand against Zohran Mamdani? Is because we are very fair people. I don't want to take side of Zohran because his parents are from India or because we all hail from the same part of the world. That would be very partial because in that case, our kids who are born in this country can never be president or senator in US. So we don't want to take the side based on countryman or because his parents were born in India. So with that background, what Zoran has done in the last 33 years of his life is extremely important, not what he has said in the last 6 months. We all know people are opportunistic, especially him. So he can make certain statements to please everyone because now he wants votes of Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and Jews. But if you look at his record in the last 5, 6 years, he has been speaking against Hindus and against Jews. The funniest part is his mother was born Hindu, raised in a Punjabi family from New Delhi. I'm Hindu, I'm Punjabi, and I'm from New Delhi. But I have no respect for his mother either. The reason being, she was first married to a Jew, second time she's married to a Muslim guy, and has raised a son who does not respect her own religion. That's number one. Number two, if Zoran doesn't give respect to his mother's religion, what makes voters think that he will respect United States? United States may be his country, but it seems like he gives more importance to his religion, which is Islamic, although he should be 50-50. But he has made Hindu a zero part of his life. How do we know that? Because on August 5th, 2020, when we all were celebrating in Times Square about a decision of Indian Supreme Court where Ram Mandir was given green light to be constructed in Ayodhya, we all were there. I was there with my family, and this guy, uh, Mamdani, was in a very small group of protesters. At that time, no one knew him, but he had a loudspeaker in his hand, and he was chanting things against Hindus, against India, and against Ram Mandir. Given that kind of reality, I think voters should know that this guy is going to make changes in his speeches to get votes, but his true colors are quite different.
Thank you very much for a stunning revelation about the fact that with the microphone he was, standing against Ram Mandir and something that we all celebrated. That was something which I did not know. Thank you very much. Mohanji, I will come to the religion part. I have nothing against Muslims contesting for the mayor position or a political position. That's it, one part of the story. The second part of the story is that he is a total left-wing nut. I say this with most respect, that he's a total left-wing nutcase, in the sense that he's so socialist, so far out in the left, that his promises to do things are so full of, reminds me of the Indian election, where from Rahul Gandhi to Arvind Kejriwal to everybody offering things for free. And I remember a very beautiful sentence in a novel in the book. It's so easy to promise to give what you don't have or you don't have to. How does one assess his policy decisions about giving things for free, trying to fix something which is already working?
So, this is, I know, his mainstay of his campaign, to offer things for free. And many, politicians, both in the, India and the US and in all parts of the world, have tried this strategy, because what happens is this strategy attracts, the voters of the lowest income group. And there are lots and lots of people in the lowest income group in all the countries all over this planet. And United States is no exception. In order to woo the voters, that are not very comfortable, in their income, he is coming up, with things that sound like heaven for these voters. For example, he has promised that he'll eliminate the fare on every city bus. He has promised that he'll have free childcare for every New Yorker aged between 6 weeks and 5 years. He has promised that he'll introduce city-owned grocery stores, where groceries will be sold at a cheaper price, and so on and so forth. My question is, it is very easy to say that, I'm going to give this for free and give that for free. Well, that begs two questions. One, who's going to pay for these services anyway? If the people are not paying for these services, somebody's going to have to pay for these services, because only then the services can be continued. Second, if somebody else is going to pay for these services, why should they pay for the services for somebody else, where they're not the beneficiary? It is a very, very simple, thing for New Yorkers to understand, that nothing comes for free. Everything that is offered as a service has to be paid for. And these are empty promises that every politician makes. Well, I wouldn't say every, but many politicians make, just to get the votes. And once they get the position of power, then they take a U-turn, or maybe they mix, those promises with something else and try to, just, deviate from the promises that they've made. So New Yorkers should be very, very careful that these promises that he's made, and many more, the list goes on, that I'll give this for free, give that for free, um, is, cannot be delivered in the long run, and that they should make, their intelligent choice and figure out that these things cannot be offered for free, and therefore they should evaluate who is a mayor who will do things for them that can be done over the long haul.
Sharma ji and Mohan ji, both of you, very, very thought of mine is wise people learn from other people's mistakes. Fools learn by their own. And here is, I'm not calling anybody a fool or a wise part, but India's experience, our experience of democracy and politics and everything else, Americans have no clue about it. They look at him as a nice kid. He must be a nice kid. I'm nothing against him as a person. I don't know him, never met him. But one of the things which becomes very important in these eras of technology, that your lies get tracked very easily. So when he made a statement that Gujarat has no Muslim population at all, Modi did such a genocide of Muslims in Gujarat, there are no Muslims left there. Now, this was not a stupid man's statement. That was viciously attacking India's prime minister, falsely attacking India's prime minister, and giving wrong data to his listeners, whoever they were. Now we know there are 6 million plus Muslims in Gujarat. There was no genocide of Muslims. There was a religious fight that happened. Many Hindus died, many Muslims died. It was a religious battle. But this kind of a lie, if this man can get away, has the courage or the audacity or shamefacedness to make this kind of a lie, how many more things he is lying about, Rakeshji?
Enough. Let me start from very first lie that he did. If you all read New York Times, you will find out New York Times recently did investigation when Zohran Mamdani applied for college as a senior in high school. He applied at Columbia University, where you have to write your ancestry. Are you a white? Are you Hispanic, Black, Asian, whatever? So he checked two boxes, Asian and African American. We all know that when you write African American, there's a special quota system for that. And even you have a lower score, you will be admitted to a prestigious university like Columbia University, which is an Ivy League school. So he checked that as African American and Asian. And we all know he's not African. Just because if you were born in Uganda does not make you African. So he did that. So that's a big lie. So some of his supporters might say it was not a lie. He did not know this thing, that he perhaps didn't have to check that box. So I have two questions here. Number one, this was intentional, means it was a lie, or if it was not a lie, then I really want to judge his intelligence. A guy who is not African is checking African, and then he hoped to get admitted to Ivy League school where very elite people go, means extremely intelligent. So either he was lying or he's not an intelligent person. So if he's not intelligent, he should not have applied at Columbia. So luckily, he never got accepted into Columbia University. So that's the first lie. Number two lie that you just mentioned was Gujarat massacre, which was not a massacre. Mamdani doesn't know enough history because he's just 33 years old. And as we all know, why the riots happened in Gujarat? Because a Muslim mob burned 59 Hindus alive in the train. So if you burn 59 people alive in the train, And now there are riots. You don't blame the rioters. You actually should blame the original mob or Muslims that burned 59 Hindus alive. So his knowledge is either very poor or he's deviating the truth. So that's a second lie. Third lie, he always comes up with excuses. In 2020, on social media, he wrote NYPD is racist, anti queer, and danger to the safety of the public. So now, when he's caught and he's running as mayor, he says, well, that was in the heat of passion because Mr. George Floyd was killed in Minnesota. So I just wrote that in anger. I'm ready to say sorry. So these are all lies. And this is a repetition of lies, means he's in the habit of lying.
Something like Mohanji said that the politicians always say something to garner a vote and capture vote for pandering to a particular group of people. This again brings back a very important element of the policy part. And the policy that he has, that he will remove ICE officers from illegal immigration. He will not have police. He will release criminals from prison. What kind of a law and order situation can we expect when he is so sympathetic to the criminals? Mohanji.
It is a matter of grave concern, Vibhutiji, the comments that he's made. Any reasonable person who listens to these kinds of comments will be absolutely in a state of shock, on listening to these comments. He's made comments that, he wants to defund the police. And, Rakesh ji mentioned, about the incident with, regarding George Floyd and all of that. Can you just imagine if he defunds the police? Who's going to control the streets of New York? Who's going to control the murders, the rapes, the thefts, the gangs, the drugs, and the list just goes on and on and on. We'll be here till the evening describing enumerating the list. It is absolutely insane for a person who wants to become a mayor to make a comment like this. There'll be chaos on the streets of New York. There'll be no law and order. People will be murdered left, right, and center. Do New Yorkers want a mayor like that? I mean, this is something that has just taken me by shock. And I'm absolutely amazed that people are not talking about this thing, on the streets of New York. How can he be leading the polls after making a comment like this? I'm speechless. I mean, I can just keep going on and on and on, but I am absolutely speechless. I hope your viewers, can feel my pain and my anger at listening to such a comment. I mean, from times immemorial, police has been around, to maintain law and order. How can you expect, the criminals to take over the streets of New York unless that's what he wants? Maybe that's what he wants. And that's why he's made this comment. He wants to defund the police.
Defunding the police is something which is a part of the Democratic Party's national agenda. We all know that. Chicago. I mean, when Mr. Trump is trying to strengthen the law and order safety in the cities, look what happened in Washington, D.C. when the special forces, not the special forces, when police presence was made very clear with the security staff coming there. There was no homicide for 10 days. That's the last data I know. People were walking with relaxed mind that at least I'm guaranteed safety. And this is matter of concern because I have seen New York City, the best and the worst. So the question here is, Rakeshji, are people so swayed easily by the Democratic Party rhetoric? Because in my opinion, the Democratic Party itself will be the biggest loser if they promote candidates like Mamdani or AOC who have been berated by their own party leadership of being extreme. And I want to compliment Tom Swazi, whom we all know. Tom Swazi made this statement, and I mentioned in my previous show to there that he had the courage and the guts to say that AOC and Mamdani must leave the party. So tell me more about it. How
Yeah.
does the Democratic Party benefit with such extreme posturing? And you can see there is a reaction happening all over the country, nay, all over the world, actually.
See, the whole thing started with the three candidates running for mayor, and Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, and Zohran Mamdani.
Yes.
The votes were split into these three, and Mamdani won for two reasons. Those two elderly gentlemen divided their votes, and Mamdani was a rapper with a name, I think Young Cinnamon or something like that. So all the young people have some kind of affiliation with another younger person. So they all voted for him. So he took advantage of his rapper days and young voters. So he kind of won Democratic primary. So Democratic Party is in a very rock and hard place. They had to get after him. Other two candidates made a major mistake. One of them should have dropped out earlier. So Zohran Mamdani is lucky because votes were divided and it took all the younger votes. That's number one. Democratic Party has to be behind a Democratic Party nominee now. But there are some intelligent people like party chairman of New York State who is not endorsing him. And he actually offered to resign if asked to do so because he is not going to endorse Mamdani. And Tom Swazi, as you mentioned, there are so many other Democrats who will stay quiet instead of supporting this guy. But I think what they need to know is what the voters should also understand is a very famous thing as told years ago by Marcus Aurelius that you can also commit injustice by doing nothing. If you stay quiet and say nothing, you are actually doing injustice. All these voters and leaders have an obligation to the public and to the country that staying quiet is not an option. At this point, they should come out and tell the truth about Zohran Mamdani and let voters be told by media like you, some other people who are courageous to say, hey, listen, guys, just don't vote for this person who talks very sweet or was a rapper. You got to get into his intentions. And as Mohan said earlier, that once if this person gets elected as mayor, he will all be religious, just like a mayor of London. So these guys act very differently before they get elected. Once they are elected, it is all over for all the other races and religions.
Yeah, I mean, one of the risks that we run is that, somewhere along the line, the moment you ask some question, you are immediately branded as a phobic guy. That's something which is very tragic. And that brings me to the element of freedom of speech. One fear that you have expressed, Rakesh, that, they will bring in their system through the back door or whatever. There was a news today of a lady called Zahra Sultana in UK. She's an MP, and she called out her Muslim MPs in UK that they were, with certain adjectives, and now she's being termed as Islamophobic. Now here is the beautiful part. She herself had made a statement, and I'm reading that to you. We are here, not here to beg for crumbs off the table. And she said it in public. We are here, we are taking the whole effing thing from the table. This is something which people do not realize. We are We Americans generally are very simple people. They trust. And when your trust gets taken for a ride, one has to be careful. Is it incumbent upon us, the infamous Hindus or infamous Indian Americans, who are viewed as evil in this society? That's a real tragic thing. Is that we have never launched any death to America. We have not told America we want to change you to a Hindu America. We have not done anything. We are not a law and order social problem at all. But yet we are being branded as the evil. Why would anybody listen to you and I? That's the question that I'm asking. Whereas they must listen to us because we have the experience. And that's my favorite statement. The history is littered with corpses of men and women who forget the lessons of history. How do we take that message to a normal average American who has no clue? For them, the world doesn't exist beyond American shores. And this is the world that we live in. Mohanji, you first.
So you opened up a Pandora's box, Vibhutiji. There are many different aspects, that we can talk about. But given the paucity of time, I'll kind of focus on a couple of things.
Yeah, I
One
opened the
is
Pandora's box because you pick your thing that is important for people to know. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
yes, yes. The thing that I'd like to kind of some of the most important things that I'll talk about here, and I'll be very brief, is that social media is something that Zohran Mamdani took really very seriously, because as Rakesh ji mentioned, his prime target audience was the young generation. He used social media. He used, a very charming, personality and all of that to connect with the youngsters. And then the youngsters, as it is, don't have, very good information about the totality of what's happening in the world. They live in their own cocoon. They live, in a world where they don't want to kind of listen to some complementary views, if you will, that are brought to the table by people who want to kind of educate them. But be that as it may, the youngsters need to go above and beyond and really do some research on him and come to the conclusion that this guy is all about lies. He's saying things that he cannot deliver because they are not economically possible, and that they should learn from what's happening in other parts of the world, exactly like the mayor of London is doing. That's exactly what's going to happen here in New York City. Wait, if he ever becomes the mayor, I can bet that there'll be some of that that will start happening here, and so on and so forth. The other thing that I'd like to say is that the more mature audience also needs to kind of do some introspection and figure out that a lot of these things that he's saying cannot be delivered. They are just empty promises that are being made by him, like Kejriwal made in Delhi, like so many other ministers and politicians have made in other parts of the world. There are politicians in South America who've made these kind of statements, and they basically driven that country into a state of poverty. Because when there's no enterprise, when there are no hardworking people, and people are only expecting the government to hand out doles and hand out free money and free this and that, they lose the spirit of hard work and enterprise. And as a result, the entire community loses out, because then there's no productivity. So across all age ranges, people have to really assess what he's saying and come to their own conclusion that these things cannot be delivered, and this is just a mirage, and they should not fall for it.
They should not fall for it. But politician is a very charming guy. He's a master
Yeah.
salesman of the world because they sell you snake oil and you think it is a massage oil. So, Rakesh ji, I wanted to also ask you a very important consideration from my point of view. Cuomo, Eric Adams, and Mamdani, both three are Democrats. Mamdani has won the primary for all the reasons that we talked about earlier on. Does Cuomo have a chance? Does Eric Adams have a chance? What are the odds as of now, polling regardless? Your gut feel.
Yes. Here is where you need to have all the other players come together and make some moves sensibly without looking into what party the other candidates belong to. Republicans are to be blamed too in this whole game. Republicans have put a candidate, Curtis Silva, who's an excellent guy, but he has no chance of winning. He's perhaps going to grab 15 to 20% of the total votes. And now we have Eric Adams, who has no chance of winning either. So, what Republicans and other Democratic leaders should do is kind of request Curtis Silva to drop out, request Eric Adams to drop out, and just put Andrew Cuomo against Zohran Mamdani. Cuomo is the only one who can defeat Mamdani. If you look at the polls and these two people, if they are contesting against each other, the margin narrows down a lot. And Cuomo is an experienced person. He might have made some mistake during COVID, but not intentional mistake, because at that time, none of us knew enough about COVID. Although me being in medical field and I ran ICUs for a long time during COVID, so I had much more sense about COVID than a general public or politician did. So I don't blame Andrew Cuomo for that. So what shall they do? They should just uh, leave their campaign and put Andrew Cuomo against Zohran Mamdani. And I think Cuomo will win 1-1. That's number one. Number two, I just want to bring one more point in before I forget. A few weeks ago, Zohran Mamdani made a statement that in case Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu steps in New York, he will have Netanyahu arrested. I'm not a lawyer, but International Criminal Court found Netanyahu to be war criminal, but no mayor, no senator, no congressman has a right to arrest a dignitary from another country. It's a federal government's job. And number two, USA and Israel both do not recognize International Criminal Court. In fact, USA passed a law in 2002 that no US politician has the right to obey International Criminal Court decision. So Mamdani knows it very well, but to get the votes, to please the public who have something against Netanyahu, he made that statement. So this reminds me of a very famous saying of Confucius that it's very difficult to catch a black cat in a dark room, especially if there's no cat. So Mamdani knows it very well that he cannot arrest Netanyahu, but he made this statement to fool the public. This is where the media should concentrate, that please don't pay any attention to what this guy says. I'm going to give you free things. I'm going to arrest this guy. I'm going to tax rich people 99% of their income. All these things are just to grab the votes. Public should be very sensible. Plus, these kind of promises can only make New York City Venezuela.
Very well
I'd like
said.
to just, with your permission,
Yes,
Vibhutiji, I'd just like to add, a little bit to what Rakesh
I was
mentioned.
coming to you for that. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yes.
He, in that list, he also has Prime Minister Modi.
Yes,
He
yeah,
mentioned that he'll have Prime Minister Modi also arrested. So he's talking like the Supreme Court justice, that he has all the power to arrest whoever he wants, etc., etc. It is also a wake up call for these youngsters On the one hand, he claims of his Indian heritage, and then he has these nice. There was like a song or something that he had, or maybe like a 1 minute video clip that was floating around all Indian youngsters.
Yeah.
If he's trying to woo you, doesn't this make sense to you that the guy's also making a comment that he'll arrest the Indian prime minister if he ever sets foot in New York City? What kind of person is this guy? On the one hand, he's trying to woo the Indian public. On the other hand, he's saying that he'll arrest the Indian prime minister if he comes to New York City. Hey, put one and one or two and two together, and you come to the conclusion that this guy's a total liar. He doesn't know what he's saying one day, and he doesn't know what he's saying another day, because he's just contradicting his own self, only because he's not telling the truth. So that's the only thing I wanted to add to what
No,
Rakesh said.
that's a very important point both of you have added here, and this is what is important for people to know. I'm Our show is basically reaching out to the Indian Americans in America. To understand, you may be a Democrat, but make a Shatru Bodh. Try to understand the nature of the beast. He will never be yours. And this is the time for Indian Americans to kind of truly awaken. And with this, I also wanted to say that my personal apologies to Mr. Eric Adams, whose name just blanked out of my mind when I was talking in the opening statement of mine. I want Eric Adams, Mr. Cuomo, and Mamdani to come and talk to us directly. Address the people, address the voters. Why you? And why not the other guy? This is important for them to do so, because whether you like it or not, whether the impression created about us is that we are some kind of a vile people, let them get to know us. And it's incumbent upon us, Mohanji, Rakeshji, and the rest of the people who are watching, to do a massive public outreach about bringing awareness about Mamdani, his faith, his beliefs, how they will, turn the tables, how it will influence the policies. And that's what is important. For me, freedom of speech is all about not standing in the park and giving a speech for 2 hours. It's all about the ability to make an inquiry about who, when, where, how, what, why. If these abilities are taken out, freedom of speech dies. And that's what I'm seeing, that our freedom of speech will die with Mamdani at the center of the place. Look at UK. UK in 2023 had the maximum number of arrests. In London, UK had the maximum number of arrests for social media posting. Elderly ladies have been taken by police because they spoke something about Islam. That's what is the ideological part, which is very important. My final question to you would be, both of you, same thing. Where do you think Democratic Party is heading out to? The law of physics, equal and opposite reaction, will it ever happen in New York for the Republicans or by the Republicans? I'm a Republican Party, Republican, you know me. So I'm looking at, this is happening with such extreme points of view, Democratic Party. Where is the Republican response and why is it missing? Is the population data has become so skewed now that it will never come, or what? Both of you. That will be my final question of the day.
I think Republicans have gone wrong in New York State and New York City. They have already accepted, hey, we are not liked by New Yorkers, so let's not fight too much, which is so wrong because Mayor Giuliani became mayor. He is Republican, or he was Republican at that time. And if you are a good candidate, you make enough efforts and your party does good job, you can win an election in New York City nicely. Bloomberg also showed the same thing. I just want to add one more thing. I have a personal request to the Muslim voters of New York City. Please don't vote for Zohran Mamdani just because he's Muslim, because this is a guy who can see criminal act in Netanyahu or Modi or Putin. But at the same time, he doesn't see anything when ISIS raped and killed and sold Yazidi women in Iraq who are also Muslims. So at that time, Zohran Mamdani keeps his mouth shut. So he's very selective. So please keep that in mind. He is not a good Muslim either.
Mohanji.
So I feel that the Democratic Party has been infiltrated by the leftists. They have kind of sold their conscience, to a personal interest, in politics. The Democratic Party is not, for the most part, keeping the best interest of the United States at heart, and the Republicans need to do a much better job in reclaiming New York City and New York State. As Rakesh mentioned, and they can do a much better job. If they strategize and figure out their direction. Because I feel that somehow they have the nation's interest in mind, but somehow they are not carrying out the actions which kind of are in parallel to that mindset. But anyway, these are my observations, and I hope that the Republican Party steps up to the plate and does a much better job.
Thank you, both of you, for coming today and daring to speak up the truth. And I'm very proud of both of you. I also wanted to add to the viewers, to the listeners, socialism as a state policy or as an economic instrument has never been any successful anywhere in the world. So, if it's whether it is the Democratic Party or its candidate Mamdani or its Congresswoman AOC, when they profess and talk about extreme left philosophies, remember those philosophies were not the ones that made America what it has been, that people are drawn to coming to it from everywhere in the planet Earth, regardless of whatever is happening today with the immigration. So that's what is important for us to bear in mind. Remember, I will repeat, history is littered with corpses of men and women who forget the lessons of history. I hope we will all learn from that. And as the second one, wise people learn from other people's mistakes, fools by their own. And I'm hoping that New York City voters will remember that part very well. Thank you very much for joining today. I always end my program with the call, Satyameva Jayate. And for truth to triumph, you and I will have to stand for it. Thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you very much, Vibhuti.